Okay, so good day, everyone. This is Nothing Conversations, and today I have with me writer and actor Carlton Totten. Hi, Carlton.
Hey, Leonard.
Yeah, thank you for your presence today. I'll tell you how I saw your YouTube channels. It's like a friend one day sent an email with the subject, "This guy gets it," and
Oh,
and then I started watching it. And then when I started watching your YouTube videos, it's like the kind of videos where 30 minutes have passed and I didn't notice. I was sorry, I was really in tune. Like I was really listening well, and I really like your contents. Maybe we can start with what is the story of Carlton? Like maybe
oh,
we can start with that.
sure. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm originally from Cincinnati, Ohio. I moved out to Los Angeles to be an actor when I was 19. When I was younger, I'll try to implement some spiritual stuff into this too. So when I was younger, I grew up Catholic. My mom drugged me to church every single Sunday. I was an altar boy. I sang in the choir. I was actually a pretty spiritual kid, actually. Like I would sit in the back of the bus and I would have this high pitched falsetto voice and I'd be singing the Mother Mary and Jesus and God. And I'd just be like, thank you for the trees, and I used to think I had my imaginary friend Jesus next to me. And I would, tell my mom, oh, Jesus is my friend. He's next to me, in the car. And so I was very imaginative as a kid, and I would make up all these stories that were really fascinating. But I remember from a very young age that I would just have like these moments, and I don't know what you would call them, and maybe other people who are listening to this would have these moments too, where you feel like, whoa, like I'm in a body, or I'm as the body. Like I would say I am as the body now, but at the time it was like, oh, I'm in a body. Like, and it was like this separation of like, this is not me, and I'm in here somehow. And it would come in like these brief moments, and it would last, different durations of time. And I would just be like, oh, it's just one of those weird, you know, I didn't know what to call it. So I always thought that religions were very, I always knew there was something off about them. And from a young age, I saw the Da Vinci Code when I was young. And the Da Vinci Code started my questioning, where I was like, could Jesus have had a wife? Like, could Mary Magdalene have, like, could they have had sex? Like what is this? Could there be a bloodline? Like, what's up with Da Vinci's Last Supper painting? What's up with that? What's the symbolism? So that movie literally got me going. And I remember doing like book reports on certain things, like in eighth grade, because I went to a Catholic school and they were super religious. And the entire thing was just basically questioning the nature of reality, but I didn't know that's what I was doing at a young age. So I was definitely having like that Truman Burbank and the Truman Show moment where things just weren't adding up. And yeah, so fast forward, as I went through high school, I was pretty much like an agnostic. I knew that I believed that there was something that I couldn't understand. I 100% thought it was ETs, like aliens, and I would talk to my friends and be like, aliens, man, aliens like seeded the human race. And like, what if like hell, like, I was definitely more curious when I was a young kid. So I would say, what if like hell doesn't exist? What if this is purgatory? Like what if this in Catholicism, like what if where we are now is like waiting to go to heaven or hell, or like this is where we like make up for our actions and stuff, and all these like just what ifs. And I think children are actually the closest to the truth, because they're just so full of wonder and curiosity, and they know they don't know. And somehow when you get to adulthood, we just think that like this mechanism, like you just stop questioning things, and you stop that childlike curiosity and wonder, and you start just taking everything for granted, like a tree. Like a tree, I said this in one of my previous videos, like when you look at a tree, you have a concept of a tree. So we look at the world in regards to our concepts of things and our ideas of things rather than the things themselves. It's kind of like when you get in a fight with someone, or an argument or a confrontation, it's ideas fighting each other. It's not actually you and the other person. And if the ideas just lifted, like a veil just lifted, you would see like you have nothing in conflict with that person except for your thoughts. So we literally go to war over thoughts and ideas. And anyway, so so fast forward, I was dating a very hippy dippy chick out here, very new agey. She had the crystals and she had the Reiki master training, and you know, she's a good person. But I was very much into science at the time. I was like, well, you know, if it can't be proven, you know, this and that. So I was giving her a hard time, and she said, you should take mushrooms. So I did my first dose of magic mushrooms, and we went to this botanical garden that's in Los Angeles. And I had my first glimpse of kind of a peek behind the veil, where so many, like this idea of love that we carry around isn't really love at all. It's like a pitiful excuse for love. And what I was experiencing was just love of experience. Love just simply being is the ultimate experience of love and bliss and unity, and everything's superficial that I cared about, because actors can get pretty fucking superficial, you know. It can care about a lot of stupid shit. Everything just started crumbling. And I was around maybe 20, I was like 20, 21 at the time. And so I was still in that stage of like needing to be somebody, needing to fit in, needing to have my reflection reflected in the needing to project an image of myself and others, to have it reflected back to me, to say, yes, Carlton is like this. So I was still building my character at the time, because I thought that's what everyone needed to do. You had to figure out who you were. You need to find yourself. You need to start building yourself and discovering. And I remember being in an agent manager meeting a long time ago, and he was like, I think you just haven't really found yourself yet. And I never understood what that meant. Like, I left there, I was like, what does that mean? Like, you haven't discovered yourself yet. And I just like, I tell you, for years I went over that in my mind. Like, I just couldn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to me. And after so I was definitely shifted after my first mushroom experience. And my only the reason I go into all this is because I know people want to hear about the journey. They want, because that's the juicy part, and that's the path, right? Eventually it's realized that there is no path. Like, how can you have a path leading to nowhere in here? And like where could you possibly go to get to where you already are? But there's an illusion of a path and a journey and a person that's on it. So when after that I started getting more curious, it opened my mind. For me, sacred plants opened my mind too, the green, you know, and so it started expanding, and I started expanding what the possibilities of life were in existence. So fast forward after that, I had an experience, which, you know, all these experiences are just glimpses behind the veil. They're not actually, they don't all add up to one day realizing something. Like, that's actually the illusion, that all these things are going to add up one day, and one day it's just going to be permanent, and I'm just going to forever stay in this realm of peace and love and oneness with God, and everything's going to be perfect. I'm not going to have any more challenges in life anymore. And that's all part of the dream. But that's what keeps the seeker going, because ego wants that, right? So ego is constantly craving, because it's so dissatisfied with this moment. So I was suffering one night. My friend was having a party. She later became my girlfriend, but she was having a party, and I must have had food poisoning. I don't know what it was, but I was having this intense pain in my stomach. Like, I was keeled over in so much pain. And she offered me her guest room to stay in, and because I had to sleep there, I didn't know what was happening to me. And I knew she was very kind of woo-woo, and went to India and had a guru there who initiated her into some energetic transfer called, at the time it was called the Oneness blessing, or Diksha. And I remember her putting her hand on me, and I felt an energy. go into my entire body, and I felt this energy go down into my stomach and start numbing out the pain. And all of a sudden, like I asked her, I said, because I didn't know what she was doing. She didn't say. She just put her hand on me, and I said, are you doing Reiki or something on me? And she said, I'm doing something. And I was so, I couldn't believe what I was experiencing. I said, I feel it. And it was like this cradle of mother-like energy was just holding me. And I just, it was like, wow. I couldn't believe it. It was blowing my mind, my rational mind. I couldn't believe that there's this thing called energy that was going into my body. So then after that, the next day, something shifted in me. Like the grass was greener. The air blowing against my face was as though I've never felt the breeze against my face before. Everything was slowing down, like the trees and the leaves and I was having like a full-on mystical experience, and this lasted for months. And I actually later on, like something shifted, but I didn't have the terminology at the time to put it together. What shifted? Basically, I had been dead my entire life up until that point. I felt like I'd never been alive. I'd never truly lived. And I called my friend back up and I said, I don't know what you did to me, but I feel like I've never lived before in my life. Like I've just been walking around as a zombie. And she was like very excited because she's experienced the same thing. And so after that, I thought, oh, this must lead to something, right? So then I started taking up yoga and create Kundalini yoga because the state came down. It was a temporary state. And that's the thing with seeking, is that you're constantly going from state to state to state, thinking that like, and it's like the wheel of samsara. It's just never ending discontentment and suffering, because you get really high and then you come down and then you want that high again. So then you go back to it. And then you think something's wrong and you think you need to seek harder and you think you need to get another guru and you think, anyway, so at that time I got a guru, I went to India, I did all this stuff. But there was a monumental shift in my perception once where I was suffering so much. I was on a job and I was suffering so much and I literally was having an anxiety, panic attack. And all of a sudden, I just gave into the suffering. I just gave into the pain. Like there was a release that happened. Something happened. It was out of my control because you are powerless against this. Like this, like it's just, something just dropped. And I looked up and what I saw, it was almost like time stood still. It was almost like everything had a golden hue to it. It was like the leaves that were coming down were coming down in slow motion. There was someone's t-shirt was was attached to like this pole, and it was flying in the wind like a flag. And it was like everything just slowed down, and it was almost like time. It wasn't that time stood still. It's that this moment now is timeless, meaning there is no time. And it was in this realization of infinity was just so mind-blowing. And that again, actually that shifted me. It shifted my perception. It put me in a state for a number of months where all fear was released. Like I'd be sitting on the beach and just be looking out. I guess you would call this the Nondual Honeymoon, because I would because most people spend it on a park bench like Eckhart Tolle or something. I spent it on the beach just like with my friend, and I would be listening to her stories about something or different challenges, and I just wouldn't be believing the challenges. I would be like, this is just self-imposed fear. And like I literally couldn't understand the resistance that she was telling me at the time, because I was in this place of just like, you're free. You are so unconditionally free. And we put ourselves in this prison. And I also, during that time, it was seen that the self was just an illusion, that the sense of self is really an obstruction to reality. Like it's necessary to be able to function. It's necessary to be able to, you're you, I'm me, and everything's separate, and we need labels for things. But when it comes to experience, it does nothing but cause you to suffer. And so so this started, I used to think that was it. I used to think, whoa, like I crossed, like a line was crossed. And maybe it was like the first step, but I then recently realized that it's been a crumbling ever since. It wasn't like a moment like the self is dissolved and everything is as it is. It was kind of a slow crumbling, and it was painful. It's so painful because everything that you cling on to, like, so for instance, like I used to have this very romantic, I'm sorry, do you want to chime in here or should I keep going?
Keep going. I like it.
Okay. So this whole spiritual idea of attachments, like I had this whole romantic idea of attachments. Like, oh, you gotta let go of your attachments. You gotta just fall into, and then what you'll fall into is God or bliss or unity or oneness with the divine. And it's like they don't really talk much about the fact that if you let go of attachments, like what is the reason for attachment? What is you're grasping? And you're grasping on for dear life because there's a part of you that realizes that what you're going to fall into is unknowing. What you're going to fall into is maybe the realization that you don't exist, that nothing is as it seems. We all have this intuition in us that feels like something isn't as we think it is. But we construct our whole lives, and that's why they call it a dream, because we construct our whole lives around something that isn't actually real. Sorry, there's a dog. My roommate is watching a dog right now, and it cries and it whines. I'm going to be right back in 2 seconds. I'm just going to let the dog in real quick. Sorry. Hey, come on. So basically, you're holding on for dear life. You're grasping, and it's painful because it's kind of like death. The reason we fear death is because we fear the unknown. We fear our own annihilation. We fear that everything we built our lives around is actually not how it actually is. And so part of the dream is staying away from that void at all costs. And when you let yourself fall, well, you don't let yourself fall. The falling just happens. And you realize there's no ground. There is no ground. You're just going to keep falling and falling and falling. And it's just a never-ending free fall where you know less and less and less, and you're more ordinary or more ordinary and more ordinary. See, it's a lot of spiritual circles, they keep adding, and it's not in the adding, it's in the subtracting. But you are not doing the subtracting. The initial line is crossed, and then it's over from there. You just jumped out of your plane and you're just going down. So ultimately, that's why like religions are constructed, and cults and spiritual like groups. And that's why I have a hard time, in groups, because I can see that there's a lot of dream things happening, and a lot of reassuring ourselves that yes, you are your character. Yes, this dog. Yes, you are this character. Hold on.
Okay.
It's a huge dog. You want to see this dog? Hold on. This dog is nuts. Hey, Jeffrey, say hi. It's huge. I'm just gonna redo the camera real quick. So basically, so basically, the self is the cause of all of our problems. And well, because what I mean by problems is like it's the core illusion that everything is kind of linked to. So if we look at our own suffering, we see that everything is linked to this story of me, that I'm like this, my journey, my wants, my needs, my feelings, my this. And what's seen after this shift of perception is that the me doesn't actually exist. And me is constructed out of stories. Like it's not actually a tangible thing, and we breathe our life force into it. And so we go a whole lifetime of constructing this idea of a me, this character. And when the character starts to unravel, I think a lot in spiritual circles is they really romanticize this, and it's like it's actually really fucking painful. And it's liberating ultimately, because you're liberated from things. You're liberated from everything, and you are no thing. Meaning, like there's nothing to attach to, because what, like, you don't even have a concept of like, yeah, of course, like, I know that's a bookshelf, but I know that's not a bookshelf. I know that you're like, this is a body, but what is a body? What, this earth, planets, space, like, we don't know anything. So all of life is just stories told around the campfire saying, there's this thing called a planet, or there's this thing called earth, or this thing called space, or there's this. And so we pretend to know what things are, and we pretend to know how things are, and then we categorize things, but realistically, no one knows anything. And so this radical unknowing is actually pretty fucking terrifying, as well as there is peace, because what you are free from is you're free from the basically everything that's attached to this separate sense of self is dissipating. It doesn't, some people it might dissipate at once, and others it might, crumble over time. But ultimately what you're left with is, you can't say that there's anything outside of yourself, not like ego self, but self being the I am, or people say pure consciousness, but consciousness is more like, consciousness is kind of another way to grasp. It's another thing to hold on to. And what consciousness is so when people go out, I am pure consciousness, it's like, okay, you're pure consciousness, but what about everything else? Oh, that's just appearing in consciousness. Well, it's fine, but it's just another label. So when you let go of even that, or that is surrendered or let go of, and not that you do it, but it does itself, you'll never know what you are. Like, you won't be an object of your knowledge. You won't hold it out here and say, this is what I am. What will be is, I know that I don't know what I am, but I know that I am. And that I am is unknowable. You can't possibly know what consciousness is, or Tony Parsons calls it wholeness. So Tony Parsons, like, it's actually incredible. I've watched a couple of his videos, and what he's done is he's created the perfect non-dual language to avoid certain things. But the problem with language at all is, the moment we start talking about it, we start destroying it, because everything we say is actually going to be a lie. It's actually not going to be true. It's actually not going to be the accurate thing. So we have to make that kind of thing where it's like, okay, like, anything I say is just going to be bullshit, but we're gonna continue to talk about it just to have a conversation, because what can be more mind-blowing and important than this? Like, this is the greatest. Like, it's hard for me to watch TV shows, even though I'm an actor, because I'm like, life is the craziest TV show ever. And one more thing before another shift that happened, like, because there are experiences that happen that, and some are like really grand and some are really, small. But one shift that happened is, I was looking at a candle flame one night. It was after I had just done like some sitting, just to sit, and I was just kind of like, I wasn't even trying to do it. I was just kind of gazing at the candle flame. And there was this recognition that was so simple yet so profound. And it was something like, if I did not exist, would that candle exist? And it's kind of like a version of if a tree fell in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? It was something like that, but it came up spontaneously. And it was at that moment that I realized what the experiencer, the experienced, and the experiencing being one and the same actually meant. That there is no separation. I am the candle flame, and the candle flame, like, all of it, it's all one thing happening, or one no thing happening. And so it's, yeah. So at that moment, it was kind of like, whoa, if awareness, again, we don't know what awareness is, but we have to call it something. So if awareness did not exist, nothing could be known. Nothing could be experienced, nothing could be. And so that was the first glimpse of like, whoa, like, is that it? And it was kind of like, of course. And it was kind of like, I want my money back. And it was kind of like a simple recognition, like, oh, of course. But it's mind blowing. Anyway, that was a long introduction. But that's the story of me.
No, yeah. It's actually, you mentioned a lot of good points there, where the spiritual trap, the clinging to something, and I kind of relate to your story, to the story, because I also grew up Catholic. I I
Mm.
I did ayahuasca once, and during
Mm.
my ayahuasca, some people in that night they saw like Arcturians, alien beings and stuff, and I was like so envious because why did I see people like paper dolls? And I saw like just golden light and my hands were just dancing spontaneously. And now I felt like it was the best experience, and not in a relative way, because there's no best, there's no extraordinary. It's like it was what I asked for, because if I saw alien beings there, I would have been trapped. I wouldn't be here, because I think you mentioned a good point where, you know, the near death experiences, channeling uh alien, whatever. It's like a trap into a, I have, what do you call this? I have pierced through the veil.
Mm.
And I think in a way, some people have embraced that as the absolute. Like that is it.
Yeah.
Like it's kind of like another dream. Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what can you say about, because some people will say like near death experiences, right? It's like I don't know. I my theory is it's just another, creating another story to seize the abyss or the infinite void.
Yeah. Um, I can speculate about death. So, for instance, if we want to go that consciousness is the fundamental substratum of reality, if we want to go on that premise, or all there is wholeness or experience or experiencing, it would make sense that when this body passes, you'll just, consciousness that is the only thing it is, or you call it God, call it whatever you want, will be looking through another being's eyes. And the difference between that, I'll get back to the near death experience, but the difference between that and reincarnation, it's a different spin on it. So reincarnation is that you are an actual self, an Atman, and that Atman is actually going to reincarnate into another body. And there's several different Atmans, yet they're all somehow connected to Brahman. And they're, anyway, it's a lot of human fantasy and fairy tale like mixed in. This simple thing, I like to give analogies because this is actually really powerful, is that it's like there's only one player and there's only one video game, and or there could be multiple video games. So let's just say there's one video game that's being played, but you can play as an infinite number of characters, and you can build them and create their storylines, and like go on this and forget yourself and go on this fantasy journey in the video game. But there's actually no video game. There's actually no world in the video game. There's actually no characters in the video game. There's actually nothing really happening. And there is just one player at the console doing, making everything happen. So that's the difference between reincarnation and what I'm speaking of is just kind of like, well, it makes sense that there'll just be another experience, another illusion of an experiencer, because you need the experiencer further to be experienced, because nothing doesn't actually exist by definition. So technically you could say all there is something, but even something, okay, so then you go back and you realize there's no thing. So then it's like, okay, so it's beyond something and it's beyond nothing. It's something, it's beyond language. Has no idea. So with near-death experiences, I think that, I think whatever the mind holds on to prior to death, because they're not actually, the body is not actually dead yet. So the brain it's kind of like in a dream every night. So when you dream, you're not actually going to these places. You're not actually leaving, like there's no soul leaving the body. It's just the brain is all the storehouses in the unconscious are coming up, and it's just having, it's doing different mechanism. It's healing your trauma in some weird ways. You're experiencing unresolved or unfelt experiences. So, you know, until the physical body and the brain are actually totally gone, and that person actually, like, somehow the body came back to life after being dead for a long period of time, like rose up in the coffin, I don't think we can say that the near-death experience is kind of a symbol of truth. I think that it's just a precursor, almost like, so for instance, a lot of people think they've seen Jesus, but like if they didn't know who Jesus was, or they weren't conditioned that way, they would never see Jesus. So like it all does come down to the brain, and that the fact that it is conditioned over a lifetime to believe certain things, or to hear about certain things, or to and it's surprising what things that you could possibly think you never believed in, or that you were never impacted by, that just come up. You know, like I saw Ganesha, it's like you know, it's just, you know, but I think ultimately everything is perfect. Not perfect as in every like people, like it's horrible. Like the tragedy of life is actually really tragic. It's like a tragic play, but it's a play, meaning yes, it appears to be happening. It's awful. I don't like, and as long as you are a character on stage, you have to play your part. Like when someone dies, like you have to comfort your friend or a family member who are mourning, and then you should mourn too, because it's tragic, you know. Like so there, it's not that like when this shift happens, like you leave the character in the play behind. It's more of like, yes, you realize that none of these things are, like, for instance, Yogananda called it shadows. It's shadows and light of the Lord. And that's actually kind of what I'm trying to say, is that everything is it appears to be happening, but it's like going to a movie theater and seeing it on the screen, and you have the experience, and you forget the reality, and you have a willingness, suspension of disbelief, to believe the drama that's happening on the screen. And you might even, like in the future, we might even be in the movie, you know, like kind of like a video game. We might be like, and have different choices to make, even though there's no choice, you know, like there might be the illusion of choice. So anyway, it's, you still have to play your part. The difference is that as after the shift is you don't take your part seriously. You don't believe your own dramas. You don't even believe your friends' dramas, but there's an acting. Like I do feel uncomfortable sometimes, because I do feel, it's funny that I'm an actor, but but I do feel like I'm acting sometimes, because and I'm doing a poor job sometimes, because people who are really bought into the play and their characters and the whole drama, like they're like really deep method actors, where they forget they're really bad at method actors at that. They've forgotten that they're just wearing a mask, and they're wearing a costume, and they're just saying lines, and it's just and nothing's actually happening. It's like, but they're fully bought in, and they can be the most dangerous, because we see that in religious extremism and fundamentalism, and it's just awful, the atrocities of what people do to each other. It's actually really horrible. But it can also be, you know, something beautiful. Like, it's not beautiful, but it is beautiful, because you're mourning and celebrating the passing of someone that you cared so much about. So the reason why they say suffering is alleviated after the shift, like you don't, that's a half truth. Like you still experience a physical pain, and you do experience everything the character would experience before. It's just you're not fully in character anymore. That's the best way I can use to describe it, because this idea that all of your suffering is just gone forever, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to ask that question, because
Yeah.
I had that, and I'm sure some people who, after reading Jed McKenna and Yuji Krishnamurti, it's like, what, you know, there are times where what's the reason you get up in the bed get out of bed, or you're that existential dread. I don't know, did you also had that phase of of the world crashed?
Yeah.
The illusions have crashed, and like it's now what? Now what's here? Something like that.
Now what? So Jed is actually one of the pivotal authors that my friend gave it to me, the same one that gave me that energetic transfer. And she said, when I was in a state of, it was a temporary state, but she was seeing beyond the veil. But she said when she was in this state, this book really put everything in perspective for her. So she recommended, she said, but and she told me about this very early on in our relationship, that, I'm not going to give you this book yet, because you're still on the journey. You're still like, I don't want to ruin it for you yet. But after that, one of the experiences that I had earlier, she said, okay, I think it's time for you to read this. And I read his first book, Spiritual Enlightenment, The Damnedest Thing, and I couldn't put it down. I read all the books. I have every single one of his books, because what happened there, it was like, so in his book, he talks about spiritual autolysis. Well, that whole book is like his spiritual autolysis, where he was consuming himself. And what happens when you read it is you're almost like consuming yourself, because it's causing you, he's not leading you to liberation, or whatever you want to call it, to realization. He's not leading you there. What he's doing is he's causing a dark night within yourself. He's causing, I think in Zen they call it the great doubt, or he's inducing a radical questioning of your reality. And what happened was, that's all he did was plant seeds. And by the end of the trilogy, the first trilogy, and then I literally, wow. I mean, like the shift was already starting to happen when I had that when I was in, I think it did trigger the dark night because I was reading the first book at the time. And I think I had just gotten done with his whole no self section. And literally, I think it triggered something within me where I just started, like, it was like, I was just like in the toilet, like going down, down the hole. And I literally, I think that's what triggered that massive panic attack. And all of a sudden a letting go happened, like in that moment. And it just so happened that I was reading Jed at the time, which may have, it was like when certain things, that's the craziest thing is certain things don't lead to other things, but for instance, like someone can have this kind of shift happen when they're drunk in the gutter, or when they're surfing, or like, but it just so happens I was reading Jed when all of a sudden things started to unravel. And he's my favorite all-time author of this kind of stuff. And I can kind of see why. I mean, I don't know why, but I can speculate why he used the pseudonym. Is that the right word? A fake name, a pen name for his books. And nobody knows who he is, but people speculate. Because, these ideas, like a lot of the times in spirituality, like we just fling around these ideas like nothing exists, you don't exist, I don't exist, but it's all meaningless. And but they're saying it with a smile on their face. And it's like, that's some really dangerous shit, So like the reason, because when you're in a world full of people playing their characters, if you start fucking with their character and you start screwing with their stories about reality, and you're not careful, in the past, it's different now with the dawn of the internet and stuff. They'll just say, oh, you're just a crazy person. You don't think anything exists, like Venice Beach is full of weirdos, and we accept them. We're like, they're cool. But in the past, you'd be put to death for saying something like this. So, but in a different sense now, if you say certain things like this, you could get fired from your job. Like you could lose your whole life. You could lose friends, family. And that's the problem, especially if you start off on a spiritual path and you are a seeker, is that like when you start, I don't want to say when you start waking up, because again, dualistic language, but let's just use it. When awakening starts to occur, or is occurring, or has occurred, and you start to go and say, hey, like, this is what I'm realizing. you start losing your friends because they think you are a pessimist. They think that you've lost it. They think that you're just believing these illusions of your mind. And then they kind of gaslight you and make you question yourself. And you're just like, no, I'm not crazy. Like, and so it's like in Jed McKenna's, he has an analogy of the theater, you know, but it's almost like Plato's cave, right? So you go back in the cave and you're like, no, there's a whole world outside you don't understand. And they're just locked into, you know, these shadows on the wall. And they think that their spiritual life matters and that everything is going to be blissful and that meditation is going to lead to something. And the tragedy is meditation. Like it's been hundreds, thousands of years of people meditating, and very few have actually crossed that line, you know? So it's almost like, why don't we question the methodology of meditation to start? You know, it's because basically what you're saying is the moment you say, here, I'm meditating, you're basically saying the truth is not here right now. And it's somewhere else. And I need to find it. And that right there, that, like, if here's the truth, there is no truth, but let's just say, here's the truth. And you're now stepping over here and trying to say, okay, it's somewhere over here. And by some miracle, I think Papa G would scream like, stop the search, you know? And it's like, that's good and it's bad. I get where he's coming from. And that's the paradox, is all of this is a paradox. And it doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. No thing makes sense, you know? Yeah, that makes sense. It's just, you know, like everything flows together. You're nothing and you're everything. You're like the spiritual path is beneficial, but then it's not, you know. The search for truth can lead somewhere, and from another perspective, it doesn't lead anywhere. And this is the truth, you know. So it's man, it's a lot of things flowing together, and that's why talking about it is so dualistic, because it's like, because then people get into like weird semantics and start saying, well, no, actually, like when you get there, you experience bliss. And a lot of people have never experienced what you and I are talking about, but they believe in so I call them quoters, because they're not able to stand on their own 2 feet. They're not able to say, like, to use their own experience as their authority. So they start, you know, they'll send you quotes like Ramana said this, Nisargadatta said this, Papaji said this, and it's usually like a whole bunch of Indian names, you know, or Robert Adams says this, you know. It doesn't matter what anybody says about it. Like I don't want to, the moment you start quoting people, I'm like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to, you know. And I try to use quotes as little as possible, because I used to be a quoter, because I believed that this is what it's going to be like at the end of the journey. And I want to defend my story of it. But it's like when the story starts to be destroyed and you start to be destroyed and all of it starts to be destroyed, the moment people start speaking with certainty about things and say, well, this authority figure that I look up to says this, it's just like, it's a losing argument, because they've already made their minds up, you know. And this isn't about other people. It's just, I have a whole analogy of the Garden of Adam and Eve, which I'm actually writing a bigger book about. I've been writing it ever since the first glimpse, or whatever you want to call it. I've been writing this whole book because I think people have the Adam and Eve story backwards. Like, they think that they fell from oneness. They think that they fell from unity with God. They think that they fell, and that sin is when the mind comes in. And it's like, I can get that. I understand that. No, I think that this is literally like the fruit that's being offered is literally, I don't want to see reality alone. I don't want to see things from this perspective alone. I like, if Eve no longer believes she is her character anymore, and that there is no more God, and that nothing is as it seems, and the self that she thinks she is just bottomed out, you know, and she's empty. Here, Adam, take this, be with me, because there is an aloneness to all this. Because what you're seeing is, I relate it to being the only sober one at a bar full of drunks. Like, everybody is drunk on their stories. Everyone is drunk on their characters. Everybody is in this play, and you're sitting outside the play like, man, I wish I was drunk with them. Like, not that you wish, but you'd never want to go back. Like, nobody who has crossed that line ever says, man, I'd really want to go back. But there's certain things that you start to see, like, wow, why was attachments the bad guy? You know? So there's a beauty to the dream. And it's not that the dream is wrong, or that the dream is it's that it's not true. But then it is true, because obviously it's happening. So it's both, because there's a more truer perception than the perception within the dream character in the dream. And so that's what it means by it's all perfect, meaning it's all playing out as it should, but it's not perfect in a sense that, wow, like it's like to say that, oh, the Holocaust was perfect, like that's fucked up. You know, that's not okay. You know, but you can say from an ultimate perspective that everything is playing out as it should. And that is beyond morality. That is beyond my idea of good and bad, good and evil. And like morality is a whole different thing, because morality is a human-made construct. And when that line is crossed, it's more of like your life is functioning beyond morality. Meaning, so in other words, you know, I will not hurt you because I'm technically hurting myself. And that's not because I believe that, it's because it's a reality. Because so karma, so Alan Watts has a great definition of karma. He says it's not the law of cause and effect. He says karma is you are what's happening to you. And so that's literally, so if I'm yelling at you and the experiences from this point of view is I am literally yelling at myself. And if I am causing pain to you, when you are in pain, I'm literally inflicting pain upon myself, because I feel that you are me. And so, so what happens is morality is not because you're following a sense of rules. Like that's literally for children. Like the 10 Commandments is for children, you know, or in Buddhism, the what do they call it? The right action and the right view and the right this and the right that. It's like that's just the Buddhist equivalent to the 10 Commandments. What happens is after the shift or realization, or whatever you want to say, that becomes your reality, only because you realize that it's all one thing and everything is interconnected. So I'm not going to, so for instance, heaven and hell doesn't exist as places you go when you die. They exist here and now. So when I am inflicting hell upon you, I'm making my reality hell, because there are consequences to that hell too. There's punishments. You go to jail. Like you. So for every action that you're doing, there is a consequence that's actually making you're inflicting hell upon yourself. So that makes sense that when realization happens, you might be impelled to relieve suffering. And that's the funniest thing, because there's no saying what could happen. Because there's no right, like you are being impelled by a different force. A different force comes online and takes over your life because you thought you were in the driver's seat before. So literally, you see, because you do see clearly, you are going to you might alleviate suffering, because you know the possibility of awakening for just anybody is so uncertain, that you feel compassion because they are lost in the dream. They don't realize it's not real. They don't realize that like none of it matters. They don't realize that all is ultimately okay. They don't and it's scary. Like there's some scary shit images that start coming on the screen and experiences. And so because of that, that's where compassion comes. That's where I think in Buddhism, the whole compassion thing came from. The only problem is like right now is people put the cart before the horse and they think I need to be compassionate. So then it's just fake. So you got a bunch of spiritual people going like, yeah, man, like my heart is, and it's all fake. So the beauty about this shift too, is you can finally relax and say, I can finally just be. I can finally, like, that you are the perfect expression of that which we can't understand. And you don't have to do anything. You don't have to be anything. And you can spread, and from that place of awareness, you can spread our ideas of what's considered good, you know, because why would I cause harm to you? And also you would launch a war because the flow is telling you to launch a war. Like I was contemplating this the other day. I was like, wow, in the game, like, so this whole idea of peaceful action, yeah, it's great, but in the game, if there is no opposition to the other side, the whole game is actually revolves around two opposites, duality, fighting each other and then creating a balance. So you got the whole yin and yang thing. So literally, if the opposite side does not rise up and oppose what's considered its opposite, then only one side will win out, and then there's no game. So I was literally like, oh, so you launch a war because it's what's right for the game right now. Not like you don't have that understanding in your head, but like it's more of like sometimes in the game you have to stand up, you have to fight, you have to like, and it might be morally wrong, you know, by morality standards, but reality doesn't function by morality. Humans think they should function by morality. So literally, like, what happens is what happens, and it's just, you know, yeah, like what is it? Like, let's say Iraq was trying to invade like Iran, you know, it's like, if Iran doesn't stand up, Iraq's just gonna, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was like, there's no time to say, oh, this is right and this is wrong. It's like, this is what's happening, you know, or this is what needs to happen. So that's just an example of that. I lost your original question, but I hope the answer.
You actually have the gift of, because like what you said earlier, words are dualistic in nature. The moment I say happy, and the opposite is created. The moment I say perfect, imperfection is created. Like words are like dualistic, but I admire those who, like you, who can, because your book, Fruit from the Tree, I hope, I don't know when is it going to be launched, but scrolling through it, it's like, I cannot explain it, but there's no, in a way, I feel like there's no need for mental analysis, or it's like when you read through it, it's intuitively understood. And then
wow,
page by page, it's like it's like when you read one page, you don't go to a friend and say, what do you mean by what he said here? Like, it's immediately understood by something. I don't know what something is, but it's like, that's the impact of it while I'm scrolling, while I'm turning the page. So it's really, wow. I don't know, it I feel like it's like describing the indescribable, you know, putting to words something that cannot be put into words. So it's really nice. Do you have like a target date when that book is gonna be released, or it's still...
I've never released the book. This is kind of a prelude to a bigger book that I've been writing, and I figured I'd put this out quicker, just as kind of like a sample. And I have, because the bigger, so it's going to be a couple days basically. So the format, I'm trying to release it as a self-published thing on Amazon, and I'm only going to charge $6 for it. Like, it's, you know, it's not, it's like, you know, the bigger book, yeah, I can charge more because it's more, there's more substance in it. But this is more of like, it's just contemplations on nothing, you know. It's just little things, and it's, you know, some pages it just has one sentence, you know, it's just, and some are more elongated. But I feel like, okay, so I'm putting all this like conceptual material together for a bigger book, and so like really like brainy people will be like, "Ooh, this is really interesting." Well, how about someone that just wants to flip through something, you know, quick, and just have like a contemplation to be like, "Whoa, that's interesting," you know, like, because here's the thing: is it's not going to lead anywhere. It just, you know, it just makes you think. And I think that, you know, I will do a quote. Socrates said, "I can't convince you of anything. I can only make you think." And I think that's a problem in our, not a problem because there are no problems. It's something that I've noticed in our culture, is that people don't question things. People don't, and I think that now more than ever is a time to just question our authorities, question our ideas, question these things. And only because it's here's another Socrates quote: "The unexamined life is not worth living," you know. it's just like, yeah, that's pretty much it. What, like, so I'm putting out a book or 2 books or 3 books. I don't know how many books. I'm just going to put out books because I can't not express this, because it's like and some people can say, well, your stuff doesn't sound very joyful. Look at me right now. I'm absolutely passionate to put this out right now. I go, I want to talk about it, it's just the joy of expression. So it's like, it's just the reason I go more negative. And this is like this idea of positive, negative. None of this shit exists. Good, bad, right, wrong. Like, this is positive and this is negative and this is like blissful and this is not. It's just like, look, like, someone needs to say, honestly, your life can come crashing down, everything, like this, like, it's not this romantic idea. Like, everything you thought was true can start to slip through your fingers. And when you start thinking, I'm going to find myself one day, and you realize, oh, actually the end of the search is you end up empty-handed, empty, literally empty, but not empty, but full at the same time, but empty, meaning empty as in, wow, like this self that I've been looking for my whole search, that I've been meditating on, that I've been therapying on, that doesn't actually exist. And so that's what I'm passionate about, is putting something out there that can, it's not going to help anybody, but it's just going to be joyful, because I like people that think. I like people, like I love ideas. I love the exchange of ideas and talking about events and I like talking about all of it. And I guess, what I've run into a lot in my life is when people don't want to go there, and I'm like, oh man, could have had a great conversation, we could have talked about the Anunnaki and aliens and stuff, and man, and you can't go there. So
yeah. It's like, I don't know, it's like, if this is gonna be an absurd, because questioning or words are really tricky, like when a question builds another one. It's like, if what we are doing is what's being done, maybe isn't it that questioning also like happens, like let's say somebody who reads the Jed McKenna material, it has a different effect on different person, right? So is it like my theory? Of course, it's a theory. It's a speculation. It's I cannot go beyond what I know. What I like you mentioned earlier, everything is always in a constant free fall. It's always in free fall. And to me, I guess when questioning is gonna happen, it's the perfect time for that person. Like it's but there are also people who doesn't question anything. like they're content with the simple life. And to me, sometimes they are the more, if the spiritual circles call it the more evolved, which I think it's a story. I think those people who didn't go through the seeking thing are the more evolved ones, because they're content with life as it is. I don't know if that makes sense, or I don't know where.
Well, that's why I bring it back to the Garden of Eden. I completely agree with what you're saying. And another reason why I called this first book is called what did I call it? hold on, I'm losing it right now. Oh yeah, Fruit from the Tree, the forbidden knowledge of life. And the reason I call it forbidden knowledge is because, if Adam and Eve were content in the garden, like there was nothing wrong. And this little serpent comes in, the mind, meaning the me, the search happens, and it's like, and they go on a journey to the tree of knowledge. They take the fruit, they bite of the fruit, and next thing you know, they're banished out of the dream, Eden. And so their ideas of everything So for instance, you get those people, they're just content with your simple life and their religion, and they're, you know, they just want to stay, you know, happy. Or they're not really, they're more of like just getting by, you know, they're not really living. They're just kind of existing. And then you think you need to do something to save them. But it's like, but you are literally probably, and I actually wonder this all the time when I post, and I'm like, is this really wise? You are literally Eve offering the fruit to Adam and saying, you take this knowledge. And the knowledge, the reason why it's called knowledge of good and evil is because everything gets wiped out. The idea of God, the idea, like they said that they are naked, meaning they're empty. Like they realize there's no self there. They're naked. They're like, oh, they start to get terrified, you know. So their comfortable environment where everything, they thought everything was as it is, and God's this being in the sky, and He tells us what to do, and it's unquestioning their reality. That's literally what's happening here. And so I sometimes I feel like a fool, and sometimes I feel like wise, you know. So it's like, so because it's like, okay, this is somewhat wise what I'm saying, but it's also foolish, because yeah, like you could ruin someone's life. Not you could, like, so that's the whole thing with like free will, right? It's like a video game. There is no free will in the game. Everything is programmed exactly how it's supposed to happen. But you can look back at the illusion of free will and be like, man, if I were at the driver's seat, I would have did something different there, because it can be a dangerous game, you know. And you know, society, like the worst punishments have happened to people that have said things like this. But we're living in a different time now. But, and it's funny, like even as we're doing this interview, I'm like, man, I hope this doesn't come back to bite me in a few years, you know. Like I'm trying to get a role or something, and it's like, hey, you're the guy that said on that interview, you know, nothing exists and nothing matters, you know. It's just, you know, so, but you can't help it, you know. It is what's happening, and I'm not resisting it. It's just what's happening.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, how is your life now with all of this? It's kind of like you mentioned a lot of glimpse of it earlier, but to me sometimes it still dawns that although you know, the direct knowledge of the self and the Leonard is nothing but an imagination, and then you're gonna play roles. You know, sometimes I feel like a fraud, or I use the term chameleonizing. Like if I'm in a relative's house, I will not talk about this thing, and when I'm in a group of friends who are psychic, like I will not tell you that if you believe in angels and extraterrestrials, I will not open the window and shine the and wake you. I feel like sometimes I posted it last year or last month on my feed, like I feel like I'm chameleonizing like playing role and after role until I don't know, it's like maybe right now I'm just putting down the script, or maybe I'll get it later. I don't know how is it for you in that sense.
So yeah, like you get it. I see you. Yeah, it's exactly like that. You do, because you have no other choice. Like this character, you have to slip it on in order to interact in life. And it's like, you know, it used to be like when the realization started occurring, I couldn't help but just, you know, like Rumi, you know, he starts dancing and then all this poetry starts coming out, except he was smart to put it in poetry and not to say, you know, someone, you know, hey, you know, like whatever. I just, yeah, like I don't bring this up. I used to bring it up with my parents and stuff, but like when I saw the immensity of this, I don't talk about it because they're very threatened by it. When I did try to go there, when I was first going on this, just even this spiritual search, you know, when I started going to India and I started doing different yoga things, like they just thought that was insane and they didn't want to talk about it. And I would want I would want to awaken them, like as though I knew better than they did. And, it's just, and now it's more of like, no, I'm, who am I to shake people out of their dream? If they're curious, they might stumble across this interview, or they might stumble across the book that's going to be released in a couple of days. Life will lead people. Like, it's like the Matrix, like Neo will be led to Morpheus eventually. And then Neo will also be led to the Oracle. And then later on, the Architect. And then like later on, everything will be as it should. So, yeah, it's just, so when I go out in public, and that's really like, I feel like a fraud. Like, I feel like I'm pretending, like I'm an actor. Like, it's funny, I'm an actor who's acting all the time. And it's like, you think that when you came into quote unquote truth or no truth or whatever you want to say, you think that you can finally, like, you come into yourself. But it's like, it's the opposite. You just feel like an imposter all the time. So and like, unless, like, for instance, like, I feel very at home, I can express myself fully with you because you get it. So when I'm with other people, it's just, for the most part, I have to pretend a lot to be interested in the things that they're interested in, or I have to pretend to be excited about the things that they're into, and it's just like, man, like, it's a lot of energy being a character. It's a lot of energy being an ego. It's a lot of energy being a self. So much life force goes into it that when it's finally let go of, you're like, whoa, you feel the difference when you start to animate your character again. So I do it all the time because, for instance, like, I'm not going to go into a casting director's office and be like, or even an acting class. Like, I have an amazing acting coach in New York. His name's Sean Patrick Folster. Amazing guy. He's a Nisargadatta guy as well, but he knows damn well, like, that he can't go in and teach his class and be like, there is no self, but let's dig into our memories and our feelings and try to bring it out of us. Like, it's just like, or I'm not going to go there when he's coaching me and we're talking. I'm not going to go there and say, you know what, Sean, like, the self isn't there. I just, like, no, I'm going to go into this character's memories, find something that I can use for the script in this character in this moment, or I'm going to go into my imagination, the character's imagination. And it's just like, dude, like, it's just never ending. Like, you're never off the stage. So that's the funniest thing, is like, there is no, like it's funny, in Jed McKenna's books, he says, like, you leave the theater. It's like, you don't ever leave the theater. You're still on stage. It's just, you don't know what real, like, this, the lines aren't flowing as well. And you're not believing things as well as you were before. And things aren't affecting you as deeply as they were before. Everything in this can from an actor's standpoint, can actually, like, Shakespeare was the most awake of them all. Like, he's just like, all the world's a stage, all of us merely players. And he talks about, there's slings of arrows and this and that, and all signifying nothing. Like, he was saying some real stuff there. So everything is a stage. And so, and the problem is the other characters can pick up that you're not picking up your cues fast enough, and then they start going like, what's going on there? Like, you're not remembering, like, it's because the whole drama depends that you play your part, and that everything is in perfect, is flowing as it should. And also, I mean, you could leave the theater. I mean, in Jed's books, like, it's a character that he's created. I don't know if this is actually the real writer's life, but yeah, it's like, he's kind of like a recluse and he's out there, but you're never really off the stage. So, like, okay, so maybe, like, they recast you and now you're like the hermit, and you're part of the stage is that house over there, and only certain people come and visit you every once in a while, but you still got to put that costume back on, come out of your, like, the little setting that the people built over there to talk to the other characters in the play, and then the audience is watching you, the invisible audience, and you're now playing your part. And then the only time you're not playing your part is you're now in your little cottage that they built on the corner of the stage that nobody goes to for the rest of the play because it's boring. So that's how I feel. It's just like, so for me, I'm still active on the stage, but it's like living two different lives, and I feel the split. And it's hard because, you know, someone who's really into me is that, like, for instance, I just started a food show, like where I'm just pursuing it's on YouTube. It's called Carlton's Food Pursuit. And I go to different like restaurants because I love food so much. And you know, you go to different restaurants and talk about the food and the owner and the story. And that's, you know, I just thought it would be a fun project to do. But I'm not going to go to the food place and be like, hey, you know, you don't exist. You know, this food is just an appearance and consciousness. And, you know, when I bite it, you know, I'm not having a direct experience of this taste. Like it's really just my brain telling me that this tastes like something, like Cypher said in The Matrix when he said, I know this steak isn't real. My brain's just telling me it's real, you know, so I'm not going to do that. But like, it takes half of my life away because I can only be half of myself, you know? So right now you're kind of getting the best of all worlds of Carlton. Like I'm putting them all together. This is actually, and it makes me so happy to say, like, this is me. You know, this is the character in full being able to express completely. So that's why it's very freeing talking to you, because I don't always feel this way in my life. So it's very fulfilling to have this conversation.
Oh yeah, me too. It's like, I don't know, it's like harmony listening to you and like this exchange. I will be forever grateful to my friend who sent you, who connected you, and then sent.
Oh yeah,
it's the same friend who sent me the Jed McKenna trilogy, and then
wow.
I don't know, we were discussing it. We were discussing the absurdity of the dream to the point where we don't know what to say to each other anymore. And I don't know, it's like my mantra right now is no one sleeps forever. Like no one is really asleep forever. One day when the alarm is on, somebody will. I'm not like the old me where I'm the star seed who will save you from the religious indoctrination. Like I feel like I'm like what you said in the play where if you like I'll give the example of the vaccine. I don't want it.
Yeah, I mean,
But if you feel like if you strongly want it, I'm not there to like I like maybe last
you have free will.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like maybe the second to the last question I have here is if I am a seeker right now, seeking answer, like grasping something, what would you tell me? like if I'm a seeker who's like still searching for it, still searching for the final whatever that means to me, what would you tell me?
So that's such a hard question to answer because there's so many different ways I can go about it. The ultimate answer is you can't do anything. Everything's gonna happen as it should. That's a more ultimate answer. And you can't do anything to stop the search because it just has to happen on its own. But I would also say, you know, if you're listening to things like this, it's going to seep in. Like there's going to be a seed. That's all you can do is you're just planting seeds. Like Jed McKenna for me planted a seed. Even Tony Parsons, like for instance, like his language was a little bit too much for me because I'm like, it's too trying to be non-dualistic, but it's the perfect language to describe this. Like he's created the best language for it. But it's caught on to be kind of a laughable trend, whereas it's like, oh, where you can't even really tell, like, okay, well, who's full of shit and who's real, you know, because the language is so perfect. So, you know, I kind of get away from all that. But anyway, for a person seeking and stuff, I used to say that you want to hope that the method that you're using will self-destruct. And when it self-destructs, you're going to not hope. I don't want to say you hope. It's hard to talk about, man. But I would hope that you self-destruct because you have to see the futility of it because you're seeking. And I was a crazy fucking seeker. Like I did the craziest things just to find enlightenment or the truth or whatever, and it never led there. What led there was a self-destruction that happened along the way, where it was like the futility of it, like, because it's futile. It is like self-hypnosis. You are hypnotizing yourself into a deeper trance, trying to find something that is actually in your imagination. It doesn't actually exist as a thing, as something that's you know. So for instance, so if you're gonna, I used to say, like, if you're gonna seek fucking hard, because hopefully you will self-destruct yourself, and a surrender will actually happen, and something will happen, or maybe not happen. Like something will, the bottom will come out. But then again, like, here's the thing: is this is already everyone's reality. So it's not somewhere out there. It's not something that wasn't already present. That's like, the truth is already. But if we want to speak dualistically about it, there's people that see it clearly and there's people that don't. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. You either see it or you don't. So it's like, but yeah, no, as far as, like, you can go two ways with it. You can seek like you've never seeked before, and then something might click. So the Buddha is a good example of that, if we can believe his story, that, you know, he went to some crazy extremes, and then what happened was a surrender came upon him, because he realized that the futility of it all came upon him. And then he said, oh, it's the middle way, which just basically means I let go, or I let go in my, and not only did I let go, the self fell out. And I don't know, I should try to put his words in the better words, because then there's this whole, oh, there's a middle way. It's just like human beings just screw all this stuff up, man. It's just like, even the teachings of Christ were just so horribly misunderstood. But it's just, so yeah, I would either say seek extremely hard, or continue to say it's already here. So if I continue to say it's already here, it's already here, it's this, it's not somewhere out there. You don't do anything to arrive at here. Even you're doing something is happening as this, you know. It's just so if you continue to listen to someone like Anna Brown, who I actually really enjoy, I think you interviewed her. I loved her. She was actually recommended by Jed in his newsletter, and I was like, oh shit. I love what she says, because it makes no compromises. But I see it a little differently, because you can't help but seek. Everything is seeking. You know, even going to a bar and getting drunk is seeking for seeking for the disappearance of this self, because this self is causing so much suffering. So we get lost in sex, and we get lost in books, and we get lost in movies, and we get lost because we want to lose ourselves, because we feel happy and at peace when the self is not present. So yeah, so either continue to listen to people and hopefully something will happen, but there's no guarantees that will happen. One is not going to lead to the other, but it might plant a seed and an unraveling might actually occur. And then, or seek hard, and just by your own craziness of being, like, I think it happened to Adyashanti as well. He was a crazy seeker for a long time, and all of a sudden, boom, you know. And so you know, and it could happen at any time, and then you realize it's not actually happening. There was no happening, because it's what always was. But the actual seeing of this could happen at any time, anywhere. And it can happen in a flash, or it can happen in an elongated, like, where it just kind of comes upon you one day. But yeah, it's a hard question, because I see a lot of these yoga things, and like, it's just all leading in the opposite direction. But maybe you need to go around the whole mountain to eventually, like, be like, oh, like, I was already at the top, like, you know. Like, I don't know. It's weird. And so there is no right and wrong, and I can only speak my truth, which is it's already here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I appreciate everything you said, and I really appreciate it, and I like it. I also like, you know, like, it's just a preference of this character. But when Yuji would say, "Don't follow me, I'm lost," or Yuji will say a bunch of long stuff, and at the end of it, he will burn it. Like what I'm saying is just is just barking. What I'm saying is bullshit. So don't
Yeah.
listen to it. So it's like it makes you realize that he's not really asking for you to follow him next satsang, or he's literally crushing it.
It's true. It's true. No, and he's magnificent as well, because he and Jay Krishnamurti couldn't be. They're so different, but they're saying similar things, but they're different. And when he says, you know, this is the barking of a dog. This is a dog barking. It's like when we stop seeing that we only relate to our concepts of things and not the things themselves, and we start to see that like your language language doesn't actually exist, and it only exists with meaning. All we're doing is we're two weird animals, or not even animals. We're two things, whatever. We're some weird soup going like this, making sounds at each other, you know, and it's just like, it makes no sense. And so the brain takes it and like, oh, this has meaning. But it's like, so it's helpful in a way to start to not, this is not a prescription, this is just kind of an observation, is that when we see things, kind of understand that we're only seeing our ideas of things and concepts. And like when we converse, like the conversation isn't actually meaning. Like what if you spoke, like the great example is like if someone speaks another language, it doesn't mean anything to you. It's just a bunch of sounds, you know. That's the greatest. Like I think Yuji's great because he just cuts it all out. He's just like, you know, I mean the fact that, and I think what he was seeing as well, and is that like when you see this is what terrified me when I first saw it. I was like, dude, no way. Is that we all pretend to know what this planet is. We all pretend to know that there's like, and we think there's authorities, of people who are wise, or people who know things, or people who have become self-realized, enlightened, and they know the way. And it's all playing into our need for a savior, because we know deep down inside, because we can actually see it if we can lift the veil for a split second, that we are absolutely all in terror. And that's why we're grasping. That's why we're making up yoga paths. That's why we're making up meditation. That's why we're making up a guy called Buddha and saying he knows the way. There's no way out. Like we don't know why we're here other than to experience. Like we don't, like we search for meaning because there is none. We form religions and cults and all these things, and we group together and we hold each other and we sing Kumbaya, and we put our fingers in our ears and our hands over our eyes to avoid seeing that we are absolutely like adrift in something that is like a work of art, yet terrifying at the same time. And it's magical, and it's not, and it's material, and it's not, and it's absolutely mind-blowing. Yeah. So I think that's what Yuji was getting at.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
He's one of the, I don't know, like Osho or Yuji. Like people put them in a box. Some people, not everybody. Like not everybody understands them because of the concept of morality, whatever. Or I don't know, like Alan Watts being, I don't know. He admits he's a rascal, or, but you know, those people you cannot put in a box.
No.
People burn you at the stake for whatever you say. It's really, I don't know. And when Yuji says money is the only thing that matters, it's like in this dream,
yeah,
money is something
Success.
that plays a role, right?
Absolutely. Like it's funny, yeah. Like if you boil it down, success in life really is the only, like when it comes to the dream, like take all the spiritual shit out of it, like you have to survive. So it's so important that you do well in life, you know? Like, so like take all this stuff out of it, and to make it the most materialistic it is just you know, conquer life, you know, because then you'll be good. You're technically, if that's the wheel of like, not the wheel of samsara, but let's say it's another wheel. It's like you're off the wheel because you're financially independent, you know, that takes you off the wheel to a certain extent. And then there's a whole different line of challenges after that. But I mean, like having material success and money, like in spirituality makes that a bad thing. And it's just like, it's only bad if like you attach your whole life and meaning and happiness into it. Yeah, that's pretty bad. And your sense of self and identity. Yeah, but then there's no bad, there's no good. But it's tragic. But another thing that you were saying, it's funny. I'll listen to Yuji, and I don't know what he's talking about half the time. I'm literally like, I have no idea what you're saying. But maybe that's the point. Like, I have no idea and maybe that's ultimately why he like rambles so much, is because to get you to a point where you're like, whoa, I have no idea. Like, and not only that, I don't even know if there's an I that even has an idea, so then you start raveling even more, and then by the end of it, it's just absurd. Like, you feel the absurdity of the entire conversation, but it's a joy to have.
Yeah. like quoting Osho, he would say, baby, my job is to confuse you. Because you really cannot put him in a box.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, maybe the last thing I'm going to ask is how,
sure,
I don't know if you still make video contents, or you post about, you post on Instagram. Maybe, I don't know how people can follow you on your social medias, or
my okay, so okay, my Instagram, my personal Instagram is at Carlton15, CARLTON 15. If you want to follow my food journey, my food one is hot underscore pursuit underscore of underscore food. And then if you want to follow, I have a spiritual page that I started a long time ago. I don't post much on it anymore, but I'm going to start posting on it more. And it has a wide variety from like a whole year's worth of posts, and you can go on in and look at all the different things. That's called Fruit of Knowledge. So at Fruit of Knowledge. It's just, so there's that. The YouTube channel, you just type in my name, Carlton Totten. You can, I'll post things like acting stuff, and industry stuff, but I'll also post food stuff, but I'll also post like spiritual stuff. And I try to divide them in different playlists. I have Fruit from the Tree coming out, which is just it's going to come out in a few days. And I guess I'll send it to you so you can link it to the video when it comes out. It's just this, 67 pages ebook of like one contemplation per page. And then after that, there's going to be a book called Fruit of Knowledge, The Enlightenment of Adam and Eve. And so that's going to come out after that. So I'm very excited about that. Other than that, Facebook, Facebook only allows like 5,000 friends, and I deleted a whole bunch of people I didn't know from before. So follow me on anything. I'm just say where you came from, and I'll be like, oh, okay, accept. So.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah,
I'm excited for your book and the next book after it. Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you this has been incredible. And yeah, I'm so surprised. I'm gonna have to ask you, like, when we get off the thing, who recommended you interview me. So this has been exciting. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I never asked you, what part of the world are you in?
I am from the Philippines.
Oh, wow. That's incredible. Yeah, because when you said like, the 5 a.m. your time when we started this, I was like, no, I don't want you to get up at 5 a.m. Like, that's crazy. And you're like, no, it's cool. Like, yeah. I was like, where is this dude? Yeah.
I've been really sleepless.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's been a lot of journey with crypto and browsing social media and stuff. So
Oh, wow. Oh, so you're really in crypto. That's interesting.
That's because I don't know, that's the only thing right now that makes me money. So,
yeah. Wow. That's really cool. Like, I don't know too much about it. I just know that it's been like Bitcoin especially has been climbing, and I'm just like, that's like, remember it had that overnight a couple of years ago, like that overnight thing, people became millionaires overnight. It's like, wow. Like, that's incredible. I don't know much about it, but it's fascinating to me. Because any way to get off of what we have going on right now is probably the best option. Yeah.
That's why I'm into this, because when crypto was there, now I can sit into the nothingness of whatever. Because if
Wow.
you're thinking about the bills and then we're on lockdown, we're on lockdown again. So it's really
Philippines is in lockdown again?
because of
Oh, wow.
the rising cases of COVID.
Oh, I actually did not know that about the Philippines. Wow. So like, what are? I'm sorry, we don't have to talk about it right now. But is it pretty strict? Like the whole deal? Wow.
Curfew, mask, and then shield and stuff.
Wow. Well, if if you ever want to chat, because you're going to be in your house obviously for a long time. So if you ever want to chat, just hit me up and down to converse. Yeah, I don't know anyone in the Philippines, so this is exciting.
Yeah, really, really grateful that we connected today. Yeah, thank you so much.
Oh yeah, thank you.